Hey everybody, it's the update from Washington. Of course, you know we're back from the district work period that lasts all of August and just a little of September in this case. So the couple, just the highlights, of course. This week we remembered the atrocities that occurred on 9/11/2001. The victims, their families, the first responders, the fact that we are a nation at war because of it, and we remain so. 18 years later, still trying to figure out Afghanistan. I have some specific thoughts on that, but that's not the point of the memorial and the services that took place in Washington, D.C., New York, Shanksville, and around the country, quite honestly, this week. But of course, we memorialized the 18th anniversary in Washington, D.C. this week as Congress. Also, an obscure bill on Tuesday evening was a vote for federal efficiency standards on data centers. And data centers, of course, are becoming more prolific as we depend more on data in our society. And data centers use a lot of energy. That is true. And the people that run the data centers have a strong impetus to make them as energy efficient as possible. It's probably their number one or two largest bill every single month. What I don't think they need is the federal government telling them to report on their energy efficiency. The market drives this, and it's doing actually very well. And so, once again, to me, it's just a federal overreach for yet another report for the private sector to have to comply with. If the federal government wants to get a report on its data centers, that's fine. But requiring the private sector to do it, again, they want to do it, believe me. So I just want to let you know if you hear something about that. We did a series of energy bills this week, so I'm going to talk to you about each one. The first bill, H.R. 1146, and I'm just going to give you the name, but just know that the name don't always match what's happening. The Arctic Cultural and Coastal Plain Protection Act, which essentially disallows any kind of energy exploration or development in ANWR, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which, by the way, is administered or managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but is not owned by the federal government. As a matter of fact, since the 70s, it's generally owned by a series of Native American corporations. And this seeks to disallow them to use the land and the mineral rights beneath ANWR to their advantage, and to the rights to develop the minerals and the lands as they choose. And I don't think it's the role of the federal government to choose for Alaskan natives or quite obviously any private organization or citizen what they can do with their land. So this is just to stop any drilling whatsoever in the Arctic. The second is H.R. 1941, the Coastal Marine and Economies Protection Act. Again, this is to make sure that our national outer continental shelf on the Pacific and Atlantic sides are closed to oil drilling, exploration, etc. I would just let you know. We are very close. I think inside the year we will be we will be an energy export nation and completely energy independent. If you want to go back to the days of counting on Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, for our energy needs, Russia, and you can see what's happening in Iran just this week with Saudi Arabia and the attacks on Saudi Arabia. If you want your gas prices, whether that it's your home heating oil, whether it's the gas that you use, propane to heat your home, run your dryer, cook your food, or heat, like I already said, heat your home, or if you want the prices at the gas pump to go up every time there's an incident in the Middle East, just continue with these policies of encouraging and enabling foreign nations to sell us energy and for us to be dependent on this energy. We are all for clean energy and things like alternative energy sources. And with that in mind as well, how do you think we can produce windmills or solar panels or any of this stuff, for that matter, without the use of fossil fuels that are used to produce these items in our plants? So if you like the low cost of energy and energy independence, you're not going to be for this, and I wasn't for it either. Finally, the protecting and securing Florida's Coastline Act of 2019. It's H.R. 205, which permanently extends the moratorium on oil and gas leasing. Again, we are blessed with a whole lot of resources in the United States. It's one of the things that makes us the great country that we are and the envy of the world, and it also strengthens our hand anytime we're negotiating with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, all our adversaries, you name it, and even some of our sometimes adversaries like Saudi Arabia. If we want to end our strong position, just cut off our ability to access our own energy reserves, and that's what that bill sought to do. I voted no on that as well. Just to let you know, I am not on the committee on judiciary, but we had what I would characterize as fake impeachment proceedings, where there's a 5-page resolution was voted on to establish a framework for an impeachment proceeding. I just see this as a kind of what I would characterize as a Democrat fig leaf to the radical left base to say, well, we are going to impeach the president, and at the same time saying, well, we're really not impeaching the president, trying to have it both ways. This committee is already set up to do oversight and have hearings. This is unnecessary in the actual framework, but it's really unnecessary considering the Mueller report and what's been found there and what has not been found there, more importantly. I just see it as a giant waste of time, and instead of solving the issues that we really have, like some of the things that we could be doing with immigration reform in the Judiciary Committee, we're going to spend our time to continue to investigate and try to impeach the president. There was also a couple bills, again, I'm not on this committee, regarding firearms legislation. Let me see. The first one is H.R. 1186. This is the so-called Keep Americans Safe Act, which would limit magazine capacity in firearms to 10 rounds. I would just let you know this. Almost every one of the mass shootings that you've read about in any recent history was with a 10-round magazine. So we're going to limit it to 10 rounds and act like we've solved anything. They're already using 10-round magazines, folks, and they're changing them very quickly and shooting people. Limiting them by law to 10 rounds would not change anything in any of the recent shootings. This is messaging only. It's ridiculous because it doesn't solve anything and doesn't make anybody more safe. Again, this was just out of the Judiciary Committee. It is not on the House floor, but I expect we will see it soon. Second is H.R. 1236, the Extreme Risk Protection Order Act of 2019, which essentially says that if somebody thinks that that you're unstable or they don't like you, you shouldn't have a firearm, they can call the police and say that, and they can take your firearms from you, and then you will have to fight to clear your name and avail yourself to your constitutional rights. Folks, this is without any due process. So if you're accused of a crime and there's due process, which is essentially a trial, and you're found guilty, you should be punished. But this is being found guilty before a trial and then having to prove you're innocent. It literally turns the Constitution on its head. I will also let you know that right now in all 50 states, a practitioner, a law enforcement officer, or a member of a family member can already essentially turn in a person that they're concerned with that is in jeopardy of hurting themselves or someone in their community, and can have their Second Amendment or constitutional rights removed from them. That already exists in every single state today, but it's these are state laws. This would be a federal law without any due process. So I'm expecting to see that, and you can already tell what my concerns are going to be about it. The third is H.R. 2708, which is entitled the Disarm Hate Act. It expands the list of misdemeanor crimes, misdemeanor, mind you, and would result in a permanent firearm prohibition. And what I find really interesting as well is it applies retroactively. So if you're already being punished for a misdemeanor, they could use that to retroactively go back and take your firearms from you. Look, none of us want any dangerous person or person of the improper mindset, so to speak, to have access to firearms. But if you've already been punished, it flies in the face of the Constitution in a double jeopardy fashion, if nothing else, that you can go back and add additional punishments after the fact retroactively. So I don't know how people raise their right hand and swear on the Constitution and vote for these things, but we all want to find a solution to the problem, but this doesn't solve anything, in my opinion, and is unconstitutional in the face of it. So we can expect more on that next week. I'm not sure what's on the docket next week. We're hoping for the USMCA, the U.S.-Canada-Mexico agreement. Mexico's already passed it. Canada wants to pass it, but they're waiting for us. People across the political spectrum, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it would replace NAFTA, results in an increase in 0.5% of GDP annually, 0.5 increase in gross domestic product annually. So both the left and the right are generally speaking in favor of this. I think if it comes to the floor, it will pass overwhelmingly, and we would like to see that come to the floor, but I'm not in charge, so we can't know exactly what's going to come up next week. But that's the update for this week, so we'll see you at the end of next one. God bless you. Thank you.